Get strong.
Alrighty, you guys. Very happy and a happy Monday to you guys. January the 20th. We are at the end of January, and we are just coming off of an incredible sports weekend in the world. Between football and basketball and wrestling. I mean, there's just no other greatest time to be a sports fan other than this past weekend. So I can't wait. That's going to be our show that we talk about through and through. We're going to talk about the NFL championship games that took place yesterday. We'll get a chance to finally square off, as we now know that in 2 weeks come Super Bowl, we will know the two teams. And man, we'll also get to talk about the incredible Royal Rumbles premium live, which I really, believe, and I will be, set in stone saying that, hey, this is the set to the WrestleMania. And coming into the match, coming into the event, we didn't know necessarily what was going to happen or how it was going to happen or the direction that was going to take place. We were kind of fooled back and forth, in and out. So, now we have a little bit of ideas and a lot of stuff that took place at the Rumble. You can really start seeing some of the storylines that are going to say, all right, hey, this is what's going to happen at WrestleMania this year. So we'll get a chance to dive heavily into that. So I want to welcome everyone. If you guys are watching us from YouTube, all right, thank you. Hit that like, share, and subscribe button. If you guys are joining us and watching us on Facebook, this is a 2-hour episode, so sit tight, grab some popcorn and your favorite beverage, and tag along into us. Join us in this exciting time to be a sports fan. And then if you guys are also taking us on the road, downloading us and listening to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, we welcome you and encourage you to tune in. Don't miss a single segment. Don't miss a single day of this podcast. I try to give you a consistent schedule, and sometimes it's a little bit difficult. I've explained this before. So I do want to apologize for my absence yesterday, or not yesterday, back on Friday. I kind of spent a long Thursday night, Friday morning, paying a trip to the emergency room due to an incident in the family that required me to head over there. Everything is doing A-okay. And, but with everything I was doing on Friday throughout the day, I just didn't have time to put on a recording. And I'm like, you know what? Maybe I'll try to figure something out over the weekend. Never happened. I'm a little disappointed in myself, you guys, because, in this case, trying to the day before the events or the week, the day before the weekend of the event, you kind of figure, all right, you kind of want to be here to give your predictions, your final thoughts. And I saved the best for last, you guys. I saved Friday to talk about the predictions and who's going to win the Rumble matches and who is going to win who's going to head to the Super Bowl. And unfortunately, it was one of those disappointing moments where, it didn't happen, unfortunately. Sorry, I'm gonna thought I was ready. I have these light beams that always provide a glare. So we're going to get a chance to talk to you guys about a lot of that stuff today. That's going to be mainly today. There's a couple other stories going around the board, interesting news. So we'll cover that, but mainly, man, mainly it's going to be about the sports. It's going to be about the Bengals highlights last night during the Chiefs game. And I want to go off. I got a heat for you guys. All right. I did out of everything. All right. I got a chance to watch. Here's how my weekend went down in the world of sports. I watched um, the Royal Rumble, and this was the first premium live event that I've watched from the beginning. And when I say the beginning, from start to finish, my eyes were glued. And I don't know if that's because it's WrestleMania season, or if that's because it was actually very entertaining. I put it one of the best entertainings. And listen, usually the first pay per view, the first premium live, whatever you want to consider it, those are the stepping stones to how the year is supposed to play out. Like, if you have a crappy Royal Rumble, it's very hard to come back and have a fantastic WrestleMania. And I think in every wrestling promotion, your first event, your first major event, which for the WWE is the Royal Rumble this year. Last year it was um day one, right? You set the tone for what the pay-per-views are to be held. Now we have Elimination Chamber, and then we look our eyes towards a 2-night extravaganza at WrestleMania in Hollywood. So it had my eyes glued, and it didn't disappoint. Between the men's and the women's, and the Roman Reigns versus Kevin Owens, and even the pitch black match, which I think a lot of people were skeptical about, that turned out fairly well. So I thought that was a great night. Watched it from start to finish. And then I ended up getting my daughters over the weekend. So, and surprisingly, they were watching the women's Royal Rumble match. And they're the 4 and 8, they're the young kids. And they kind of are at the stage where they will do anything that you do because you're doing it, and they want to be a part of what you're doing. So my oldest my 8-year-old will go ahead and watch wrestling with me, or watch baseball, watch football, but deep down she's not necessarily a huge fan. So is the youngest one. So I mean, but they were glued on to bits and pieces of the match. As a matter of fact, they fell asleep to it, which I just thought was more of a memorable moment. So we got a chance to do that. We were going to go out to a basketball game. Well, I went out to a basketball game. So if you actually don't remember, back on this program, on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel, where we used to have the old program called Jay and Trey podcast. Trey has his kind of basketball Olympic schedule going out, and he invited us out to the games, which one took place yesterday. They faced the Alley Cats, and I tell you, it went down to a buzzer, not a buzzer beater, but to the final 2 shots of the game. And I couldn't take the girls. They were kind of feeling under the weather, didn't want to take anyone sick. So I took them home to the mothers, and then I went to the game, and we're watching the game. And it came down to the final play, where the Stallions, who is Trey's currently the manager, is one of the managers on the team. The Stallions, earned a foul 2-shot point at the end of the game. No time remaining, tied at, what was it, 24? As a matter of fact, yeah, and they were actually tied. So they needed 2 to win, and he got 2. And it was really interesting because the same guy who shot the 2-point, the 2 shot winning points, also shot the 2 points. I got them 2 points, a point closer. So that was an exciting moment. Had you on the edge of the seats. They're still undefeated. I got the next schedule out, and I had a good conversation with Trey. So, it was a great time, great experience. It definitely out there to support the locals, especially the Olympic games that they have on an annual basis. Because it's not just basketball. You got bowling, you got probably soccer. I don't know all the games that they really do play throughout the year, but there's plenty of them. So I got a chance to enjoy some of that. That was really fun. Got home. Didn't really tune much into the 49ers and the Eagles game. I was listening to it on the way home from the basketball game. And I was like, for a moment, maybe I was going to tune into it. I was tuning into it here and there. And then I kind of got, you figured out that, hey, Philadelphia, ends up going out and kind of separating themselves from San Francisco, and you had that whole drama spill over there, that helped Philadelphia, advance to the Super Bowl. But my main focus was watching the Bengals and Chiefs games. Now, I've explained this on the show on the channel multiple times. All right, I was born and raised in San Diego. By default, I was a Chargers fan. Growing up, not knowing a whole lot about the NFL and the teams and the history of the teams, I kind of, when the Chargers started having drama, in the office, and they were talking about verge of selling or verge of moving the team, I was like, all right, they kept on disappointing us. All right. They had success, but they always led to disappointment. So my father kind of got me into the 49ers with Jim Harbaugh at the end of Alex Smith's career. You had Frank Gore on the team, and this was a really tough team. They went all the way down to the Super Bowl to face the Ravens. And this was at the time when, Colin Kaepernick kind of introduced himself into the NFL. And then they end up losing. And the story goes is that the Chargers moved up. They sold San Diego, moved up to LA after staying, after Kroenke moves the Rams back to Los Angeles. And I'm like, all right, this is my chance to, if I am to choose a different team, I feel that I have the right to. And I chose a Los Angeles team. And it's kind of, I kind of get that look like from people sometimes. It's like San Diego and LA, you don't live in San Diego, root for, LA team and then go root for, a San Diego team. So I moved to the Rams, supportive the Rams since they moved. Then I moved out to Northern Kentucky. I want to say about no more than 15 minutes away from Cincinnati and the Paycor Stadium and Great American Ballpark. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to support the local town. Trey always gives me difficulties through this, saying, why in the world are you supporting the Cincinnati Bengals? Well, I live 15 minutes away. And although at the end of the day, if the Rams are facing the Bengals, I'm going to always root for the Rams. And I'd admit, just like a good season that we had last year where we won the Super Bowl, it was, they had a bad season. I got to live up with that. But what's nice is I have my home team. I grew up. I have the team that I root for, number one. And I also get a chance to support the local team, which are the Bengals. They are in two different conferences. They're in two different divisions. They hardly face each other, and so I think it's for me it's a I feel like this validated, and I always get that hassle every time I run into Trey. Every time the Bengals are doing well. Matter of fact, I wore this Joe Burrow jersey a couple of weeks ago in support of the Bengals and Bills game, and I was getting Trey tries to send me this. Hey, you're jumping ship. You're becoming a bandwagon. No, I'm not a bandwagon. I support the Rams. I am a Rams fan. I support the Bengals as being my local team. And we talk about the Bengals quite often down here. So that's kind of where I stand at. So yes, last night I was honestly rooting for the 49ers and the Bengals, because if you know anything about the history, the 49ers have beaten the Bengals in the Super Bowl, and it's only been the Super Bowl run that Cincinnati's had. They haven't really had a Super Bowl run since then, and a Super Bowl win. So, you kind of root for the, history to repeat itself. Last year, Bengals went on to face the Raiders in the wild card weekend series. And, that's where all this whole losing streak started, if you believe it or not. So, yeah, I was rooting for the Cincinnati Bengals. Watched the game. I think it was a very intense game, very close game. And then you get down to, okay, the final minutes of the game where things, I think, just kind of explode and unravel. And it's like, uh-oh, do the Bengals have it? There was a moment where, you had Joe Burrow. All he had to do is run down the field, to a field goal position, kick the field goal with no time at all. And, Chiefs are going to knock it out of the park. You also imagine that, Kansas City is dealing with rookies as receivers. And, you have the not so great Patrick Mahomes who's injured right now. And you really thought that you're going to be able to come away with this game. And then, couple penalties, and later the Bengals kind of acted like they did, a decade ago, and gave it right back up. And I say this with all due respect from this team. Um, you know, I got hassled yesterday. As soon as the game was over, I got a couple of phone calls from people saying, "Oh, the referees suck, and the referees blew this call, and the Bengals only lost because of referees. They were the MVPs of the game," and I call that horseradish. Steve Barber, from Armchair Booking Wrestling Podcast, put this out there last night, and it comes to show just the amount of truth that this states. He says, "I guess Joseph Osai, part of my mispronounced name, was responsible for losing. After all, he had the late hit out of bounds," and that's what really overcame the game. It was Osai's late hit when Patrick Mahomes ran to get out of bounds. Osai apparently ran into him after he was fully out of bounds, and it was a rough in the passer, or unnecessarily roughness, which caused half the distance to the goal, put them in field goal position, and Kansas City, the rest is history. Well, you also had, I'm apparently, people are blaming Osai for this, and you also got to think about Osai also. He also let Burrow get sacked 5 times. Osai threw 2 interceptions. Osai netted 0 yards in the first quarter. Osai got called for intentional grounding, and Osai got called for pass interference on the long third down. 129 plays in the game, but the one mistake he made is the only thing that's caused them to lose. I think that's well said, and I think that's well said to everybody else. Here's the thing. People are going to point to Osai. They're going to pat him on the back, feel sorry for him, say, all right, you'll get it next time. I get that. One play doesn't define the entire game. Everyone also sits there and points at the referee's call, right? And they point, oh, is this a bad call? Is this a good call? And the referees have nothing to do with the payout of the game. Everyone called me last night, was yelling at me saying, you know what? The referees got paid to make the Bengals lose. And I think that's complete horseradish to a lot of people. At what point did the referees came in there and cost the Bengals the football game? There was, Joe Burrow didn't run down the field and get that extra 3 points when they were tied, and that was in his last possession. That was a fail, right? They stopped them on third down, but then had a penalty in the backfield that could have presented things. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that the referees are perfect. Umpires and referees are never perfect, but the one thing that I tell you I did see yesterday in both AFC and NFC conference championship games, whether referees slowing down, just like they've done all postseason long, and trying to make the call correct. You don't understand how loud it can be in Arrowhead Field, and when they're all focused, having to be on the actual play, and they could barely hear in their headphones, anymore. There are going to be bound to be some mistakes or differences that can adjust and affect the entire football game. But there wasn't a single bad call on the game that wasn't validated. Okay. And lately, what they've done was so that they could also prevent injuries. they've allowed players to play through the play, even if the play was called off. If there's an offensive foul, if there was an offensive lineman moving, so a false start, if there was an approachment on the field that warranted a stop of the play, if there was a timeout called, if the officials that was up in the boxes called, said, hey, listen, we got to stop the play, something's not correct, and that play's already off. You've seen this has been multiple times this place a postseason that you've seen the officials allow the play to continue because it prevents people getting injured, right? You let them play the full play and then go out into their injustice, especially with how loud the crowd has been, how loud, not being able to communicate promptly. And I get it. I'm like I said, I'm not sitting here and saying that the referees are 100% mistake free. They will make mistakes, but they've made a significant effort this playoff season to slow down, relook at plays, make sure they got the right calls. There's more than just the 4 officials on the field. You got another 4 to 6 officials on the sideline that's involved into the conversations. You got got another 5 to 6 guys up in the booths or in New York trying to make sure that every play is called correctly, and that's the goal. And so here, we go down to it, 23-20, that the Bengals lost, and they're not going to the Super Bowl this year. And it's easy to point fingers at the refs or Joseph Osai. Well, let me tell you what, there's other plays, there was other situations in the entirety of the game that affected the outcome of this game. And this game could have been very well a 28-20 or a 35-20 Bengals if they just simply been able to correct their mistakes. So, I hate to say it to you guys. I've gotten a lot of, people, in my ear chirping away about that, but that is one of my biggest pet peeves. I mean, you're not calling, referees are not perfect. Right? They got to make human calls on human moments, and you got to allow them to do that. And if you don't allow them to do that, then, you don't accept that, get it. Listen, they've come a long way for last year and 2 years ago and 3 years ago for making mistakes after mistakes after mistakes. And, listen, they've gotten their fair share of backlash. This year it's been completely different. The Bengals have lost fair and square, 23-20. And it does hurt. It hurts a lot. And we hope that maybe, just maybe, we'll have a better season next year. All right, let's step aside to our first timeout on the year, on the morning, getting things underway here on the program. Thank you guys for tuning in to the Throw-In right here on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. And all of this can't be possible without the use and the support of StreamYard Studios, the proud home of the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. StreamYard Studios, where you could create podcasts, videos, host virtual business meetings, and even conduct interviews. Check out their free version today at StreamYard.com. Woke up this morning, felt like utter crap. Talk about my girls being under the weather. I don't feel under the weather. I feel fine. I'll take that back. I feel much better than I did this morning, where I had my stomach was hurting. I was getting those chills, and excuse me. So 2-hour program here today. I had to do a show on a Monday. Don't want to keep on. Excuse me. Gosh. All right. I think that's out of my system. Oh, gosh. Whew. I had that for back on Thursday, where it was just utterly just terrible. But listen, ending off of what we said back on the first opening segment with the fan base. Listen, the Bengals beat themselves. Let's just face it. Listen, it was a game of wits. It was a game of defense versus defense. and you had to completely just go out there and do what you had to do. And it was the amount of who's going to make the most mistakes, who was going to make the most errors. And I think it was an even playing field for both teams. You had two great defensive backs going at it. Kansas City had their own share of problems. It was Patrick Mahomes had his his ankle injury that he received last week, and he moved on up and was able to play this week. And then he also had to deal with a line of rookie receivers that everyone's just getting hurt. And then you also had to deal with Joe Burrow having the insignificant support of the offensive line. And it goes down to, all right, who's going to make the most plays? I mean, even Kansas City had a couple of, hey, taunting calls on them, which could have affected them. And it was just Patrick Mahomes was able to do one good thing to get, and he put himself on the line, maybe the potential last play of the game for them. And he put himself on the line and it worked out. It may not work out at the Super Bowl against the Eagles, but it worked out against the Cincinnati Bengals this time. Listen, when you face also a team, that now, fourth time in 2 years, you have to figure that they kind of have your number a little bit. And even though Kansas City has lost 3 consecutive games up until yesterday against the Bengals, man, it's just it's a tough pill to swallow. But you know what? I still think where people sit at today, and a year ago today we were talking about your top guys in the NFL, especially in quarterback size, right, rankings, and you put Tom Brady up there, you put Patrick Mahomes up there, you put Josh Allen up there, and then somewhere along the line Joe Burrow does fit in the picture, and even throwing in a guy like Justin Herbert. And to go ahead and put, now after we saw Joe Burrow and Josh Allen, you kind of put Josh Allen behind Joe Burrow. I mean, it's still, these are very good, were playoff rivalry matchups. It was like, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, and Patrick Mahomes, the Chiefs, the Bengals, and the Bills remind me of the Patriots, the Colts, and the Steelers, a decade ago when they had Big Ben, Tom Brady, and Peyton Manning. I mean, gosh, great stuff. All right, we're going to talk a little bit more about the NFL. We have 2 weeks to talk about it. But the Royal Rumble was over this weekend also. Probably a really big, successful event coming from the world. And we got a chance to watch from start to finish. Kicked off with the men's Royal Rumble. Then you had the pitch black match, the women's Raw Women's Championship match, and then the undisputed WWE Universal Championship match, and then the Royal Rumble. And man, setting the tone for what WrestleMania is to look like this year is something crazy, something out of water, something spectacular. I absolutely loved every second of it. I was glued. I even got my daughters to be glued late at night watching the women's matches show up. And a lot of things, I was talking to Trey again over this weekend because I went out to the basketball game, and I was like, what's your thoughts on the Rumble? One thing he mentioned to me was that he missed the alumni, the Hall of Famers, the people who are making special appearances, just because those aren't entries. And this year we saw a lot of inbred talent on the main roster, on the NXT roster. Yeah, we got treated to a couple of younger, some, Booker T was one of them. But I was actually, maybe you had to sleep on it for a couple of nights, and I was very pleased to see that they didn't have to rely on an RVD or the Boogeyman or Kane, or even Lita or Trish Stratus to fill in the Royal Rumble slots this year. I thought that was very impressive. Now, yeah, given on the women's side, there was plenty of talent. You had Michelle McCool. Okay. You had you didn't see Ronda Rousey, which I thought that was great, to be honest. Nothing to disrespect Ronda Rousey. I just thought it was great that she wasn't a part of it, just because it gave a lot of the younger talents like Roxanne Perez, who was coming up. And these are stepping stones, because they may get called up later on this year, depending on how they continue the reaction that they got. And so, it was a new look, but it also shows, for the longest time, WWE was reluctant and relying on the pastime talent that was needed to have this, to put on this program. And yeah, you had your Brock Lesnar's and your Bobby Lashley's, but they're in part of feuds and storylines. Okay, you got your Logan Paul. Just take a look maybe at the men's Royal Rumble really quick. There's not, maybe Booker T, all right, but there is not a single person in that Rumble match that you did not, or you could have not seen or predicted that they didn't have a chance at winning that Rumble. Okay, let me put it this way: from one other than Booker T, I'd say maybe Booker T was the ideal person that you're like, all right, he didn't really have a real chance at winning the Rumble, right? He's an alumni. He was just probably there for a slot filler, whatever. Everyone on that list is currently in the WWE right now. What did Triple H do? He promoted everyone, and probably all 30 men, if not at least most of them, are going to have their chance in to have a spot at the Royal Rumble. And I think that's very important. You kick things off with Gunther and Sheamus. You have the Fight Club start you off. And I think what was more impressive was that both Sheamus and Gunther went the entire way. Okay? You cannot devalue the effort that Gunther and Sheamus went through 27, 28 other men coming down to like the final four. You got to see Karrion Kross, Xavier Woods. I was kind of also hoping maybe that we could have saw Big E. I don't know. I didn't know his status. And you always start asking yourself, all right, what is the legitimate, what's going on, right? What's the legitimate thing that is happening? Hold on one second. So I'm just looking at the list. When you have a Royal Rumble match that has probably about 8 to 10 people as alumni, and don't get me wrong, it's always great to bring back guys like Triple H to make an entry, or guys like the Boogeyman or Finley or Doink the Clown, or Kane or the Boogeyman. I mean, those guys are great fillers. They are entertaining, but you kind of almost realize and understand, hey, they really have no chance of winning, and it becomes lackluster, in my opinion. My thought. I thought this was a definitely different approach. Triple H focused on the guys, the men and women that he had, especially in the men's side. You knew what the story was going to get. You even brought Logan Paul. Great. I mean, you brought, Bad Bunny in there, great. I haven't seen him all last year. Logan Paul's definitely earned a spot in the Royal Rumble. I mean, he's been able to do some incredible things. I mean, you can't go wrong. I know a lot of people dislike Logan Paul, and I'm not going to argue with that. He is a likable, unlikable guy, but you cannot deny the what he's been able to do in the Royal, in his career in the WWE, having a couple of great matches with The Miz, and then going off to facing, Roman Reigns, and then having his spotlight moment. That was a pretty bad hit between Ricochet and Logan Paul at inside the Rumble. I thought that was pretty incredible that they've had. But what you also saw was future storylines that can potentially be a WrestleMania match. For example, Edge comes out and puts away Judgment Day for the most part. Who else do I see? Dominic Mysterio came out after Rey and Ray, the storyline goes is, I mean, there was reports that Ray got, was not in complete shape for the Rumble after the match he had on Friday, but apparently, so they used the storyline where Ray's just not going to enter. Dominic kind of maybe did something to prevent that from happening. More should unfold, and there's that rumor that the Mysterios will face off with each other at Mania. And then I think then it comes down to the final, right? Cody Rhodes comes out number 30. We get down to Omos and Braun, which is great. You had the segment with Brock Lesnar and Bobby Lashley. Seth Rollins, goes goes toe to toe for a minute with Cody Rhodes. And then we get down to the last two guys. Cody Rhodes, who now we figured that, all right, Dream, The Rock's not in it. If he's going to be at WrestleMania hit, then that's going to be later on down the road. But Cody Rhodes is coming back. He's making, we're already saw out that all right, he's going to win this. And then you put him up against Gunther, who's already broken Rey Mysterio longevity, being inside the Rumble. He goes on and Gunther, he's entered number 1. He goes on and goes through either 28 other men to get to Cody Rhodes, and now he's taken on Cody Rhodes, and Cody Rhodes and Gunther go on and have with themselves at least, I say, it felt like it was like a 20-minute match, but they had probably 5 to 10-minute match after just them to themselves. I mean, and Gunther, listen, man, the bad thing is he looked fatigued. He looked like he was tired, like he was winded. But to be able to go on and continue to have a match with Cody Rhodes, and I'm gonna say it. I don't know. You don't see Iron Man matches much. Yes, we're planning on getting a treat with Bryan Danielson and MJF and AEW, but you don't see many people competing for 45 plus minutes, especially at a tempo. And yes, maybe the Royal Rumble is built differently, and there's moments where you could rest, but you do have to always consistently look busy in the Rumble, or else there's been stories where if you didn't look like you were busy and you don't look like you were filling up space, you're going to get eliminated sooner than you were expected to get eliminated. So I mean, Gunther definitely looked pretty fatigued heading into with Cody Rhodes, but he carried himself for a solid, I don't know, like I said 5, maybe 10 minutes. And with that being said, I mean, although Cody Rhodes won, and we'll get a chance to talk with about Cody Rhodes often, and Raw's tonight, and hopefully we'll hear from him. Gunther is, on the other hand, that we have to also not ignore. Let's look at him and acknowledge what he was capable of doing. I mean, lasting 28 other men to go down to be the final 2, going on and putting on another 5-10 minute match with Cody Rhodes. He's built different. You really think about it. I got to give him kudos. I mean, I know Sheamus lasted a good amount of ways. Drew McIntyre also was a contribute to lasting. You had those 3 pretty big guys and pretty built guys that really took the Royal Rumble to the limit. But nothing stands out for Gunther, and I appreciated what Gunther was able to do. In NXT UK, over there in NXT, and then when he got brought up, I felt like it was a little off. Imperium went over to SmackDown. The Bloodline was kind of already operating, SmackDown, and then Imperium, man, you have to come out strong. I thought maybe, that was going to get in the way. They really built themselves up, but the Royal Rumble on Saturday and Gunther going the distance and lasting as long, and just by barely winning, I mean, they were barely losing. I mean, there was moments between Gunther and Cody Rhodes one-on-one that you almost felt that Gunther had that edge to that he could eliminate Cody Rhodes from the match. Some really big chops, knew how to deliver it. And my thing is, I look at Gunther in a whole different point of view. A lot of respect given to Gunther after the performance that we saw back on Saturday. But listen, Cody Rhodes run it. We kind of knew once the number 30 hit and Cody Rhodes came out that was kind of going to be the storyline. I couldn't, but you once again, kudos to Triple H keeping it kind of in house, and keeping it kind of up to grabs for anyone, because for majority of the match, you could have everyone that entered in, from The Miz at number 3 to Austin Theory at 25, even Otis, who entered in at number 16, all potentially had a good chance. Maybe Baron Corbin, who got knocked out of frustration, didn't quite have a chance. I believe he got knocked out by Brock Lesnar, because Brock Lesnar was eliminated by Bobby Lashley. But then Seth Rollins puts Baron Corbin, Corbin in the ring, and blah blah blah. Whatever the case may be, but you know, I really liked the feud. I really definitely enjoyed the men's Royal Rumble, and that really set things off for an amazing night. So we're going to take a break here. I want to continue talking about the Royal Rumble that happened on Saturday. It's going to be a big event, a big part of our program today. So we'll step aside. We'll still talk up to about the Royal Rumble coming up next. Let's look at the women's side of things. How did the women's unfold back on Saturday night? Still more to come here for 2 hours of the throw-in with Justin. That's myself right here on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. Alrighty, you guys. The hour is kind of a little bit different. Planning out, kind of just taking it slower on a Monday, trying to figure some things out as we get through hour number 1 to hour number 2 and all that good stuff in between. Just like I said, talking a lot about the Royal Rumble. There's a lot of conversation there. Okay. We talked heavily about the men's side of things that kick things off, and in hour number 2 we'll move direction to actual matches that had taken place. But it was a great pay-per-view, and I have not seen such a great premium live from the WWE for a while. And I hate to say it, but I mean, this is, like I mentioned, it sets you off to what it sets the tone for what WrestleMania is going to be like. And I was talking to Trey about this because I met him back, caught up with them a little bit back at the basketball game on Sunday, and I told him, I was like, listen, if Dwayne Johnson, because I believe The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, was a really big speculation for the Rumble. And I told him, I was like, listen, if Dwayne Johnson is not going to be a part of WrestleMania, and we still are uncertain, Dwayne Johnson goes out and says something like, hey, I'm not going to be physically ready for WrestleMania, which it's kind of hard to believe. And WWE is notorious from time to time to really keep things under wraps. But if he's not going to be ready for the WrestleMania, then the match card, I believe, for 2 nights, I think it's in pretty good hands with Triple H. And what I appreciate now is that, there's been reports that coming up, like, yesterday or coming up this week, that the match cards for WrestleMania are going to be, finalized. And now then you just work on the stories to get there for the next 2 months. There's a better direction compared to last year that WWE is going into, which is much appreciated. One thing I would definitely appreciate, is the fact that you don't see a guy like Brock Lesnar nor Ronda Rousey win. I'm also going to be looking out for things like, last year was kind of an off year because you saw both Royal Rumble winners lose their matches. And now Cody Rhodes maybe sets his eyes towards Roman Reigns. We'll talk about that in hour number 2. But female wise, I think a long overdue waiting for Rhea Ripley, who won the female. She lasted 29 other men, entering number one. It was Rhea versus Liv to kick things off. And, just like, earlier with the men's, at the females, you didn't see, you saw, the same thing that happened. You got EO Sky coming, you had the entire damage control. Piper Niven showed up. Asuka came out. You saw Candice LeRae, Zoe Starks, Roxanne Perez, Raquel Rodriguez, Michelle McCool, Indy Hartwell, Nikki Cross came out. And I think in a surprise return, and hopefully this is an actual return, is Nia Jax. Took 11 people to eliminate her. So, I mean, listen, and if you would have asked me, out of either Royal Rumble matches, which one you were surprised of the most, to like, or concerned the most of, can you even come up with 30 people? And I would have said the women's. And if you would have also asked me if I had a prediction for the women's, I said I had no idea. To put Rhea Ripley in the picture, finally winning the Royal Rumble match, it took her over a year finally to get to where we're at. And I think a lot of people aren't expected of that. And let me put it this way, because it was last year, okay, around this time, she got teamed up with, she got teamed up with Liv Morgan. Right? Liv Morgan, wasn't it Liv Morgan and it was Liv Morgan and Rhea Ripley. They teamed up with each other. Okay. And then, sometime in February, March, they separated. It wasn't working out. They didn't win titles. And then they started going off their own way. Rhea joins the Judgment Day. Liv Morgan goes out and gets title shot opportunities, when we very well thought that Rhea worked her way up and just, Rhea Ripley, it was Rhea Ripley who teamed up with Nikki Cross, right? All right. A year ago, just a little over a year ago, Rhea Ripley, Nikki Cross drops the titles. They moved on from the tag team division. Potentially a feud that started lurking didn't follow through. Rhea gets teamed up with Liv Morgan. Then when they separated for Rhea Ripley to join the Judgment Day, Liv Morgan goes on to earn title opportunities and have basically failure moments. That's what I'm going to call it for now. And then it kind of felt like Rhea Ripley was at a stalemate with herself for a while. And then now you see her ticketing herself for the WrestleMania. And the first thing that I would honestly say, and I would be disappointed if we didn't get to see this year, and I think it only means to do so, is that we see Rhea Ripley reunite their feud, Bianca Belair's feud, at WrestleMania. Rhea Ripley goes on to win the Raw Women's Championship, and maybe this is the spark for the Judgment Day that the Judgment Day needs to start winning titles. And I think that's going to be a big importance for the Judgment Day moving forward. So, hey, Royal Rumble, so far, the Rumble match is definitely a success. I can see some changes to, what's being made. I'm excited. One thing that I will make hopefully we don't see is that, because Raw's tonight, Rhea Ripley should be there on Raw. I just hope that she doesn't quite jump into, oh, I'm going to go ahead and pick you, Bianca, because last year when Ronda did that on SmackDown, she said, I'm going to go after Charlotte. Then there was really no, there really wasn't much of a setup. It got a little personal, ended up failing a lot of us. And I tell you that, Ronda and Charlotte last year at WrestleMania was a disappointment, just because I think we were led on to believe that it was going to be a submission match. and we are all probably in favor of Charlotte submitting. I don't know what happened, but we didn't see that. So, there's a possibility, take some time, Rhea, sit on it, toy with it, tease it a little bit. Take a month before you actually determine who you're going to face, and then go from there. I want to still talk about the three matches that took place, especially that last one that was surprisingly the main event of the Royal Rumble. I've mostly seen, the Rumble match being the ending of Royal Rumble. What we saw, the Bloodline ended. A lot of things took place. So we'll still talk about that in hour number 2. I want to come back with you with some local sports around the area. I got a little interesting short story I want to share with you this morning. I don't know how you guys would take it. Maybe I'm the laughing stock, but let me know. I'll share with that with hour number 2. But yeah, this is a wrap of hour number 1, you guys. The throw-in kicking off on a Monday. We'll be back around hour number 2 here, available on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. I'm going to save this for promotion for a little later on in the hour number 2 here on the throw-in on the TNC Sports Talk. But there is just some music on Epidemic Sound that provides us the music here on our program, that you just got to love and enjoy. It kind of gives you another pop-up feeling to what's going on. This is Swoosh, You Move Fast by Dylan Sitz and Oi OOYY. I just love it. And it kind of just builds up some intense moments, kind of gets you fired up for what's to come. Hour number 2 here. I want to give a big shout out to Speaker, who provides us our audio platforms. If you guys are looking to upload podcast or whatever you guys want to put up here and make money, monetize it, recommend using Spreaker. It uploads our podcast on platforms like iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Spreaker. If you listen to a podcast, you can find us the throw-in on there. So thank you guys for Spreaker. It's very easy to do, and with what StreamYard provides after the program, I end the recording quickly, about 10 minutes to download the audio platform and a free audio edit, video editor. I just cut out the breaks, re-download it, upload it to Spreaker that way, and such a big deal, and I just can't just can't thank them enough. And I also thank Steve Barber over at Armchair Booking Wrestling Podcast, because he came to me. He was like, "Hey, I'm using this great new product, and you should try it too." So, I'm definitely enjoying the use out of it. You could upload up to 500 hours of content. You could have different podcasts going on there, and this and that. So I'm excited to see, to see what comes up. So I want to ask you guys a question here, because, okay, so I kind of frustrated this morning. So I woke up this morning, was going to do a program live, just felt, apparently I slept through my alarm, woke up at 5:50, felt my stomach twisting in my, in my insides. And, I'm like, dude, I'm not, just my head's not all right. When I get, I was like, I'm going to take a few, hours, kind of rest. That's why I got this program going on, and we're going to go from there. But man, so I was kind of scrolling through social media, found myself on a TikTok page going through the lives, and I came across The Winnipeg Jets practiced this morning because they are getting ready to play on the St. Louis Blues tonight for NHL. The only game going to be on tonight. And, last year, probably since last year, I went out to my first hockey game last year with my daughter, and I want to be able to take her back again sometime this year. Hopefully we could come across some tickets. So, I down here in the area, I know back at home they had the San Diego Gulls. Just wasn't really that big of a fan of them. I kind of grew up on an Anaheim Ducks fan, maybe Los Angeles Kings for a moment, maybe a Ducks fan. Come over here, and then for the longest time I was thinking the Cyclones were affiliated with the Columbus Blue Jackets. Not the case. Just actually learned that out a few weeks ago, as I'm starting to get more and more invested into just hockey itself. So, and like I said, I got a lot to learn. I'm not no perfect hockey expert, but I've been following the Cincinnati Cyclones, and so I was just curious. I know that there's an AHL and ECHL. So for hockey, which is like the, I guess, double A system, and I still don't, maybe I should Google this, but I haven't done it yet. But I was just kind of curious about, okay, how is their minor league game, teams doing? Because, hey, baseball has minor league teams, and if it wasn't for their minor league system, then their major league system is, a complete, utter failure. Same thing for, hockey. You rely on sending your guys down to your AAA, AA organizations. And so I kind of, I was in the chat. I was like, hey, how is your, ECHL team going? And how sometimes if you're on TikTok live, you get a lot of questions going through, you don't get a chance to see all of them. And so I also, I waited a few minutes, and he was like, all right, did he not read my question? Maybe I'll send it again. He's answering questions rapidly. And then he goes on and says, like, listen, I don't like your joke. Don't say your joke. And I got kicked out of the comment section. And I'm just thinking to myself, I'm like, okay, one, did I say something wrong? And two, what was the joke about it? I literally asked, how is this how is the Jets ECHL team doing? Right? I asked that question, and apparently that's a joke to people, and I'm like, I don't understand why that's a joke. I don't understand why. I guess I was treated that way. I was kind of a little offended that you would take that as a joke, and you would take that as me disrespecting the team when I didn't do anything. When all I did was ask an educational question, a question that was validated. Okay, how is your, hey, Winnipeg's doing good other than last week. I'm a favorite, getting more into, NHL. Maybe Winnipeg could have sold me, on becoming a lifetime long fan base with them. I don't know, but definitely not how, you treat your community and the fan base who takes the time to watch your product, to support your product, following you, hitting that like button for you, and all that stuff. And you think that it was a joke. I don't know how they're playing. There was no intentions on if they're playing like crap. I don't even know if they have a minor league team, and if so, are they a part of the AHL, the ECHL? I was just curious about how this all went. If they did, it would have been nice, instead of the monitor, to say, hey, you're trying to be funny, you're a scam, you're trying to heckle us. No, I'm trying to learn from you guys. It would have been nice if you could have educated the fan base who maybe are showing up to your page for the very first time. I don't understand. So I guess that rubbed me a little wrong this morning, and I don't know. I really don't know my thoughts right now on the Winnipeg Jets. And I had no problems with them yesterday, this morning. That's why I stayed on and I watched and I listened to them, and they were doing a casual practice before their game, like they're supposed to be doing. And he was sitting on the defensive side, and I don't know if anyone else listening to this saw the live video, but I literally asked, how are your minor league teams doing, basically? And he was kind of he was taking it completely the wrong way. And I was like, dude, like, what the hell? I don't understand what in the world went wrong. And kind of let me upset. I don't know how that goes. But I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it's not meant to be. Local news around town, everything that went on. Hey, the Cyclones had a pretty man, it was I would say was an upsetting weekend for the sport world of Cincinnati and sports. Cyclones dropped 2 of 3 over the weekend. They finished a 3-game series Friday and Saturday against the Newfoundland's Growlers. They lost on Friday 2-1. Zach Andrusiak scored the only goal of that game for them. And then they come back and they lost 3-1. Jalen Smirik put on a goal for that, only for the Cyclones in that game as well. I got a chance to listen to last night's game against on the road against Toledo Walleyes. They won 4-2. It was kind of a crazy last 90-second victory. They were and Druziak puts up 2 goals in throughout the game. The second one coming in the midst of the third period, and then the Walleyes come back and tie it with a minute less, probably just a minute to go in the game. And I'm like, great, we're going to go into overtime. And the understanding of how January's been, it hasn't been the favorite for the Cyclones, but you thought that, all right, maybe you needed this victory today, kind of end off on a good note, end off the month off of a good note. So you kind of end off, a minute and a half remaining, and now the game's tied. And you're like, oh, great. If we can't win a regular period, then we're going to remain in third place at the end of the month. And then the last thing you want to do is go into overtime. Yushiro Hirano, pardon if I put that, mispronounced that last name, but he put up a goal, and then Phil Lagunov, apologize ahead of time. I'm terrible at names. Put up the final goal in the third period with literally just seconds to go. The third one, I think, came in with like 37 seconds, and then 17 seconds for the fourth one, as the Cyclones hold off to go win 4-2 final score. They will face Kansas City Mavericks at 7:30 p.m. at home on February 1st. So we'll get excited to get some hockey action back into town as they begin off of a new month. They currently sit second place behind Indy Fuel, probably I think 8 points behind them. They finished 5-7 in the month of January, surpassing right now Toledo Walleyes for ECHL hockey. Cincinnati Bearcats didn't do so good back on Saturday. They fell short to ranked number 3 Houston, 75-69. They moved them to 14-8 on the season. Conference are 5-4, 2-game losing streak. Placed 5th in the American Atlantic. Landers Nolly, 24 points, 9 for 14 of field goals, 6 for 10 in the 3-point range with 6 rebounds. They take on Tulsa at home on February 1st at tip-off at 7 p.m., who's 11th in the American Athletic. Another another conference game. 5-15 on the year. They're 1-3 in conference, on a 2-game losing streak. They're also winless. Tulsa's winless on the road. So you're looking at, and they also lost against Memphis back on yesterday, 80-69. So hopefully to get things back on track in the middle of the week for the Bearcats by picking up a victory. Number 13, Xavier Musketeers also lost to Creighton on the road back on Saturday, 84-69. Really just a bad game. They still remain first in the Big East, 17-5. They are tied with Providence and Marquette. 17-5. Conference is 9-2. Game losing streak. They lost. They are 11-1 at home, 5-2 on the road, and neutral sites are 1-2. They'll get a chance to make up that loss against having a really big game coming up this Wednesday, 6:30 p.m. tip-off, home to Providence, as they are tied in the Big East. Providence coming off of a victory, 70-65 against Villanova yesterday. The Kentucky Wildcats here, fifth in the SEC, picked up a loss yesterday on Saturday against Kansas, 77-68. They move on to 14-7, 5-3 in conference on a one-game losing streak. They'll be playing tomorrow at Ole Miss at 9 p.m., who's currently sitting 13th in the SEC. They also, Ole Miss picked up a loss back on Saturday in Oklahoma against Oklahoma State, 82-60, pretty devastating loss. So, hey, listen, Cincinnati, the Xavier, and Kentucky all have big opportunities in the middle of this week to pick up some victories and get back on that right track. As hey, listen, with that and with the Bengals losing on Sunday, definitely a tough week. So hey, I want to take a break, step aside. I want to share to you some baseball stories. I think this is a pretty big story, I think, in my opinion, especially after seeing how the Reds are doing. And it has nothing to do with the Reds, but to see how the Reds are playing or in approaching off season, some people are frustrated. Some owners are frustrated about certain baseball teams and their willingness to spend a lot of money. We'll explain more to that still to come. Hour number 2 progressing here on the TNC Sports. Alrighty, you guys. Hour number 2 here continues, and it's given to you by Epidemic Sound. Hey, listen, I want to give these guys a big shout out for providing royalty-free music that you can access and put on your YouTube programs. Epidemic Sound. Discover your world-class artists, composers, and bands. Find the perfect soundtrack and give your social media accounts the music they deserve. Epidemic Sound is a royalty-free music link. For more information, check out epidemicsound.com. This one here by Back in Barcelona by Farvio. Kind of been a quick program here today, as like I mentioned, I kind of woke up not feeling the greatest, ended up, just not being able to put on a live show earlier today, and just want to make sure I continue putting out a product, whether that's a recording or that's a whatever you want to call it, a live show. I really do like live shows, but let me tell you this, sometimes the recordings help. All right, so the story I couldn't get to before the break, I really want to get to here, and looks like the remainder of the show is going to be back on wrestling, talking about the 3 matches. That was not a Royal Rumble match at the Rumble this Saturday. It's going to be, discovered, taking place for the rest of the program. We'll talk about the NFL Conference Championship games tomorrow, as we dive a little bit more deep into the Super Bowl contenders. Try to just leave off on a happy note. But the reason that this story caught my eye was probably because it was about the Padres and being hometown and my favorite team with the Padres. And remember, living about 20 minutes away from about from Great American Ballpark and the Cincinnati Reds. And I am supportive of the Reds, and we talk a lot about Cincinnati Reds, and maybe this article is probably relatable with the Reds. And I was like reading it, and I was like, all right, this is what I want to bring this up because it's important. But reports came out, I want to say yesterday. Rockies owners Dick Monfort questions Padres spending, highlights MLB's biggest problem in the process. And this is found on CBS Sports. The Padres are trying to win, and that continues to upset some owners. And I read that, and the first reaction I get is I kind of laugh because, I mean, isn't that what you're trying to do? Okay. And like I said, relating back to the Reds, aren't you trying to win baseball games? Aren't you trying to win now? And does that mean, there's different strategies that ball clubs take, that general managers take to help that move along. And for, Peter Seidler, this is about spending, signing guys like Manny Machado and Fernando Tatis and Yu Darvish and Juan Soto, all guys who can help contribute winning a World Series for the Padres. They came to the NL championship game last year. And the last time they really had a lot of success was the 98 World Series, where they got shut out by the Yankees 40-0. Now, hey, listen, it's been 20 plus years in the making. Peter Seidler, AJ Preller, they're wanting to win. They're wanting to win now. And this is the team that do so. And yeah, you're going to have to spend money. Now, you look at the future for the Padres. All right. So you hope that your farm system is developing players that when it's time for guys like Machado and Soto and Darvish to exit the Padres organization, you have guys that are, almost there, if not there, to replace them. But, I'm saying, there's teams like the Padres right now where they did the whole farm system building. They built them up to trade them off. And you go on and now you look at the, like, for example, the Reds, who are like, hey, we're just going to stick to the farm system. But the Rockies owner, in an article on CBS Sports, says, to the immense credit of the owner Peter Seidler, the San Diego Padres in recent years have heavily committed themselves to fielding the best team possible. The most recent marquee addition is shortstop Alexander Bogaerts, who earlier this offseason inked a $280 million pact with the Padres, and add to the signing of Manny Machado, Fernando Tatis Jr.'s extension, the Padres for Yu Darvish and Juan Soto. Among the notable recent moves, the Padres star quality up and down their roster. Yeah, they've made some interesting moves, some moves that I think, listen, I don't think anyone expected. It was out of the blue. Juan Soto was nowhere in the market for the Padres, and out of nowhere, oh, there we go. The Padres got Juan Soto. Really changed the atmosphere to the Padres in the second half of the season. And just to think, you do got guys like, you do have guys such as Machado, Tatis, Soto, Bogaerts. 4 guys right now are on top of the rest of the guys, Cronenworth, who can now, help contribute a full season. Hopefully, remember last year, the Padres' biggest issue was Fernando Tatis going down with an injury that required surgery right before this, offseason started. As soon as spring training hit, and I know it was a delay, but the Padres had to have Fernando Tatis get surgery done. He decided to get his shoulder done too. I guess it was a torn in the wrist or something like that at the beginning of the season. Who knows the details behind it, and there's an argument on that, but he had to get surgery done, made him miss the entire season. And then he decided, or made him miss up until the All-Star break. And then basically right when he was supposed to return back, he got suspended because of failing drug test. Guessing tested positive for PED. Well, then that, pampered it out. He decided he was going to go ahead and get the shoulder surgery done and be healthy for this year. And the Padres had to make some changes because they were on the run to the postseason. In 2023, they made the favorites to dislodge the Dodgers from the familiar spot at the top of the National League West standings. And, listen, until it's actually on paper, yeah, right now the Padres look like the favorite team. The Dodgers have unloaded tremendous amount of players, to stick underneath that tax threshold. And it looks like the Padres are a team to make a run for it this year. They're making it known. Okay. What's more is that the Padres are at the present of running the third highest payroll of all MLB, according to COTS contracts. And they're doing so seemingly despite of the fact that the San Diego Padres is just the 27th largest media market in the U.S. That's the that the Padres are operating in such a way and doing so not only visible viability but also profitability. It continues to be a source of consternation. I apologize. I got the microphone right down. Maybe I got to lower this down a little bit. For the owners who would very much prefer the continue not trying to win baseball games in relative peace and comfort. This is where it sets differently because you relate it back to the Reds. Reds are obviously looking not to spend money and maybe to win ball games and make it to the playoffs in other places. But then you see the Cubs and you see the Brewers and you see the Cardinals all making that effort, adding a few key, really key additional pieces to their organization. I mean, look at the Cardinals. They had to replace Alex Pujols and Yadier Molina. So definitely relatable. The latest to air his grievances toward the Padres in their effort to win World Series is Dick Monfort of the Colorado Rockies and their 16th ranked payroll via Patrick Saunders of the Denver Post. Here's what Monfort had to say about the Padres and their spending at the community event over the weekend. So this is what Dick Monfort said, and I quote, "That puts a lot of pressure in parentheses on us. But it's not just the Padres, it's the Mets, it's the Phillies. This has been an interesting year. What the Padres are doing, I don't 100% agree with. I know that our fans probably agree with it. We'll see how it works out. I look at the Padres and they have a really talented team, but they have some holes too. They've got 3, maybe 4 starting pitchers, and then they are sort of like us. They have Joe Musgrove, Blake Snell, Yu Darvish, so I don't know. They have spent a lot of money, and they will have to spend a lot more if they want to keep outfielder Juan Soto. But it does put a lot of pressure on us. Yes, it does." In the article, the Padres' recent ways have caused more of the ownership mask to slip a bit, and it's not hard to make away a couple of conclusions from the latest sets of grievances. 1, most owners don't like it when other teams spend. 2, owners really don't like it when a team like the Padres put a lie to market-based excuses for not spending. 3, those same owners knowingly that fans want them to, try to win baseball games. The single biggest problem in Major League Baseball right now, and the driver of many related problems, is the owner who doesn't care about winning, who views the franchise as a portfolio holding rather than a civic treasure that carries it with certain obligations. Worst of all, owners can invest in the payroll and still remain quite profitable. Such are the immense revenue streams that teams enjoy exchanging for merely existing. Too many, though, will prefer to cash those checks while putting forward every little effort towards the only thing that justifies their existence. That thing is trying to win baseball games like, the small marketing San Diego Padres. Listen, I think the overall said and done is that the Padres have once been that market team that you look at that we're not trying to spend money. Their game plan was always trying to build from within, then move up and explore out. Well, that's what AJ Preller, that's what Peter Seidler has done over the years. They took a crack at it back in 2014, utterly failed. They said, all right, let's go back down to our minor league team, system, build them up, make them probable. They had a lot of top prospects. They traded them out. Everyone who's on this team now did not come up with the organization 2 or 3 years ago. And, now they're like, all right, we have a team. We have the right players. And with a few more additional players that can help all ball club, we have maybe a 2 to 4 year window span, especially now since the Dodgers are no longer, at least they don't look as dominant as they once were last season. Dodgers have gone through the same thing, and they're starting to experience what the Padres have had to go through. Well, obviously this hurts for the teams like the Rockies, who maybe don't want to spin as much, but try to still keep in the race. I mean, it's going to be guys like the Rockies who say that stuff. I wouldn't be surprised if the Cincinnati Reds aren't saying the same thing too. Well, I don't like the St. Louis Cardinals spending money and guaranteeing a playoff spot. I mean, it takes away from what we're trying to do, win games, but not spend money. Well, I mean, you're going to always have that separation between the teams that are going to be on that urge of winning games and trying to go out and spend money, a little bit of money to win those games. Obviously, the Padres are taking it to the next level because they're inches. They were right there, and they just, did not complete it. And with Tatis coming back, with actually having a full year with Juan Soto, Manny Machado being optional for next year, it's like there is a urgency in San Diego to win, and it's been 20 plus years since they went to the World Series. They want to get back again, and they're thriving. They're dying for it. I listen to Padres radio all the time, and man, I tell you, they are really fighting for a championship. And it kind of just makes you wish, because the Reds weren't that far away 2 years ago, and the year before that they were actually in the playoffs. And you look at 5 years ago, the Padres were in the conversation with the Reds and with the White Sox as three teams that could be looking up. And there was, for how close they made it 2 years ago. Then they went off, and they had a solid 500 season last year, although they didn't get off to a great start. I mean, you would think that, hey, listen, this would be also an opportunity with the Cubs not performing well, with the Cardinals starting to change their direction because of old people, the old Hall of Famers leaving and new people coming up. Maybe this would be a chance to crack at trying to push for something. But then you remind yourself that the owners, just like the Reds, just like the Pirates, just like the Marlins, and right now, because of the Colorado Rockies, you can throw them in that conversation. They don't care. They don't want you to, they don't care about winning. They don't care about, they want to win. Yeah, I mean, the Castellinis, they want to win more than anyone else. I know that. You know that. But they don't want to do it without spending a dime. They want they want to win without having to worry about, the tax threshold. They want to win, putting more money in the pockets. Well, let me tell you something. The Castellinis have made more money before you even bought your tickets, before you even thinking about going to a baseball game this year. They have made more money today for the 2023 season than before the spring trainings even started. All right. I mean, it is utterly ridiculous. And I mean, I hear this all the time. They make their money through television deals. All right. The Castellinis, they make all their profit, all right, that they want to make for the year through the television deals. The Apple, when you have to go to Apple TV to watch Friday night baseball games, ESPN, Bally Sports, MLB Network, all that, wherever, FX1 or Fox, wherever you watch baseball at, remember, the teams such as the Reds have already made their yearly revenue that they wanted to make. Everything else, the tickets, the merchandise, the you going out there, the concession stands, all that stuff is additional money to their pockets. You're fitting it into them. They've already made their money. That's just, they're just rolling into it. And You would think that the money that you put in to go watching the Reds play, the Rosie Reds Foundation, who puts a lot of money and support into the Cincinnati Reds, you think that they go out and they try to put you together a winning ball club. And, you don't have to go get the Aaron Judges of the world, or you don't have to go get, the Max Scherzers of the world, but you expect them to at least go out and give you a few good people. Luis Castillo was someone that you want to look at the calendar, see when he's pitching, and go out to watch. And there's truly the last person that you really saw of that, honestly, had to be, I say Johnny Cueto. I say the last person that you really looked at. I remember growing up, you would go out and I would look at the lineup, and when my dad said, "Hey, we're gonna go a ball game on Sunday," great. Who's pitching that day? I'm praying for Jake Peavy. Give me Jake Peavy. Well, then it's Greg Maddux, and I'm like, all right, just as good, or or Clayton Richard. I'm like, oh man, didn't get Jake Peavy today. You don't have that when you look at today's Reds roster. All right, you want to go out and you say, hey, let's go out to a Friday night's game. All right, cool. Who's pitching? All right, do we got anyone pitching tonight that's going to give us a chance to win? And realistically, who do you think of that right now on that Reds rotation that's like a solid, consistent of winning? I know Tyler Malley, but he's gone. Maybe Hunter Green, but I think there's a lot of pressure that's being put on him this year. There's just nobody. Then you go to the game. All right, you're going to go ahead and get Nick Lodolu. All right, we'll give him a chance. Hopefully he pitches, well into the fifth, sixth inning to give the bullpen an opportunity. And then you go on and talk about, all right, who's that lineup? Who we're going to go see? Who do we want to go see in outfield? All right. Juan Soto's there for the Padres. Great. We're going to go see Juan Soto, and we're going to go ahead and, we're going to get excited. And even if Juan Soto's the only exciting guy in that lineup today, there's that opportunity that he hits that long ball out to left field and blast the world. All right. Manny Machado, he's in that lineup too. We got to go see Manny Machado, Xander Bogaerts, Fernando Tatis. Jake Cronenworth, that's first. Okay, Ha-Sung Kim, maybe if you could play him. Who's over out there in left field, that's great. Look at the Reds roster, you guys. Who are you guys excited to go look into that roster? All right, who you guys sitting here and saying, are you guys sitting here telling me that you guys are excited to watch, Joey Votto? Yeah, okay. Give him a round of applause. He's not the same Votto 10 years ago, but he's still a good Votto first baseman. And, until he retires, that's what we're going to have to settle with. Tyler Stevenson. Okay. We could give a round of a hand to him. We'll go watch him. I don't know how much, watching a catcher does. Jonathan India. Okay. I could give him a round of applause to him. That's it. I mean, Will Myers is Will Myers. He's out in the outfield. There's no one else besides, unless you grew up watching the minor leagues, then there's really no one else. And Jose Barrero hasn't done nothing. TJ Friedel hasn't done nothing. Jake Farley hasn't done nothing. Nick Senzel hasn't done nothing. There's a whole bunch of Reds players that just have absolutely done jack shit to give you saying a sense of energy. Hey, let's go out to the ball game, put our money and our investment into their pockets to figure out just, if the Reds are going to win or not. So there is a massive difference between the Reds and the Padres, and the Reds could be considered with the Colorado Rockies complaining about this story. All right, let's take one last final break. Let's come back. Let's talk about the big Royal Rumble situation that unfolded. A lot of people maybe projected this, but it actually happened, whether you liked it or not. The throw-in takes you up to the 2 o'clock, to the 2-hour mark here on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. Alrighty. Last segment of Monday. Here we go. Want to give a big shout out to our good friends over at Armchair Booking Wrestling Podcast. Join Steve Barber and Dwaylen Davis as they break down news and highlights of professional wrestling. The Armchair Booking Wrestling Podcast is a weekly wrestling podcast founded on YouTube and all audio streaming platforms. Go check out and follow Armchair Booking wrestling podcast today. They've been working on that project for the last couple of weeks. I got a chance to be a part of about 2 weeks ago, called Why We Are Fans. And Saturday night was the reason exactly why I am a wrestling fan, because moment like last Saturday night is the truly reason why I'm a wrestling fan of, especially of the WWE. We saw a incredible Royal Rumble event. We saw the pitch black match, which I think sparked a lot of people's attentions. I didn't quite know just how this was gonna be portrayed, and listen, seeing the neon stuff, and they lit it up very perfectly, and it was actually an actual fight for a good few minutes. They took it outside the ring, went through the announce table. um you know there are seeing also Bray Wyatt in a match to begin with and telling his story, and we know how good of a storyteller he is, and being able to execute it. I was a little worried that it wasn't going to be received as it probably as we expected it to be received, or how he wanted it to be received. And I think it did a lot more than just that, to be honest. um I was very pleased with it, especially at the ending where, when you look at Bray Wyatt's entrance, and as he was making his way down, the entire Firefly Funhouse characters were standing in the entrance area. Way you saw the the bird, and then you saw the pig, and all that good stuff there. And I mean, I was very pleased about how, I was very pleased with how this kind of unfolded, how this went about. And then you saw the ending where this took out throughout the, you saw this different type of demonic Bray Wyatt, who unfolded into took LA Knight to this out of ring area, and then Uncle Howdy sacrificed himself, his body, and it was like, okay, there you go. We're at the top of the game. And you saw this great fire production, and then Bray Wyatt standing in front of it, and then the entire Firefly Funhouse were standing on top of the stage, or the ladder that Uncle Howdy went off on. And like I said, just something fantastic, something great to watch, and definitely definitely didn't disappoint. Same thing went with the women's Raw Women's Championship match. Definitely enjoyable to watch, and to still keep Alexa Bliss a little bit separated from all of that, but then keep her, from all what happened earlier, then to just still be able to keep her, in that area. But we get down to the main event that really now sets your tone to WrestleMania, and that's Roman versus Kevin Owens, which throughout the entire match you saw a how do I put this? Excuse me. The entire match, you saw Sami Zayn in the at ringside, kind of being concerned, or being issued, wondering, all right, what moves are he gonna make? Earlier this past weekend, Sami Zayn said, I had fun. This was fun at some point. And there was a lot of speculations of what could have happened, and one of the biggest speculations kind of went ahead and unfolded back on Saturday at the Royal Rumble, and that was um, after the match. Roman Reigns wasn't too happy. He kept on um, excuse me, Roman Reigns kept on, um, had the Usos come out, continue tackling or attacking Kevin Owens, tied him, handcuffed him to the ring ropes, and right when Roman was about to kind of quote unquote end Kevin Owens with the steel chair, Sami Zayn got in the way, stopped him, and Roman told him that he had to do it. That if he's a part of the bloodline, then he should be the one. And his final test was finally there, saying that he should be the one that should be ending it. And instead of hitting Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn turns on the bloodline and slaps the chair across the back of Roman Reigns. Therefore, the Usos start, or at least one half of the Usos really start, getting involved, attacking Sami Zayn. Jimmy Uso. No, was it Jey Uso, who was finally getting on Sami Zayn's good side, walked away from the bloodline, didn't want to be a part of it, didn't want to be attacked. Basically, at the end of the night, both the bloodline stand tall. Both Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens laid out in the ring, and the bloodline is finally torn. Something's going on where they're torn apart, and they're gonna have a lot of controversy moving forward. Instagram, Jey Uso said, "Hey, I'm done." That's all you quote. We don't know what necessarily that means, and we were fairly speculating that come WrestleMania we could see Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn team up to face the Usos for the tag titles, and go on to win the tag titles. But I don't think anyone, we didn't really quite expect. I think it's still so unsurreal to start seeing the complications. We kind of figure that, hey, at some point this is going to happen. And now we're actually seeing it unfold and unravel, and a big part of it kind of, hey, moved forward. At the Rumble, it's kind of like, did it really, really happen? I can't believe this. I can't believe my eyes. So, I mean, listen, I am excited because look at where this really puts look at where this sorry I'm kind of having a police chase in the background here on my phone, and this crazy motorcycle guy ended up going on, putting some fuel in, took someone who was pumping fuel into his car and kept on going. Yeah, kind of strange. Anyways, let me put it off this way for you guys. Here's now the bigger story. What do we know? Roman Reigns will face Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania. At least Roman Reigns has a title opportunity at WrestleMania. All right. There are speculations, and I'm only going to leave them as speculations, that Sami Zayn and Roman Reigns will do battle at Elimination Chamber. We are unclear about the confirmation of that. And so what we are also seeing is that now, all right, this bloodline is starting to be dismantled. All right. Jey walked out on the bloodline. The Sami Zayn, backstabbed Roman Reigns because he was taking things too far. Validated experiences. I completely validate. And I can't. This is how this is just beyond imaginable, right? Because Sami Zayn was the face of the Rumble on Saturday night. They were cussing, using terms at Roman Reigns, saying the F-bomb here and there. And, listen, this was expected, and this is where that heat goes. And this is I'm trying to find the right words for you guys. This is the unravel of how perfect this storyline has been built, you guys. You got to get on the edge of your seat and listen to this and watch it over and over and over again. Excitement. Because now this leads into what's going to happen next. This is not the end with Sami Zayn. This is not the end with Kevin Owens. This is not over between them and the Bloodline. This is going to be a continuous. And now Roman Reigns not only says, hey, there's a good chance I'll be facing Cody Rhodes at Mania this year, but I got to get through these two guys plus whoever else wants to get involved. And on top of that, well, guess what? I got to deal with my family member who walked out on me and dishonored, the Bloodline himself. There's like 5 or 6 different things going on right now with the Bloodline that makes this 10 times more entertaining and must-see television. When was the last time that you must have seen what happened on Friday Night SmackDown? This right here is what we're talking about. It's WrestleMania season because of this. I'm excited. If you're not excited, if you're not a WWE fan, you're not excited about what's to come and how this storyline progresses. We are finally seeing, I'm going to say this, we are finally seeing the payoff from whatever Paul Heyman and Triple H and Roman Reigns are putting together, right? Whatever they're putting together in this storyline, just like Paul Heyman was with the storyline back with Brock Lesnar when he had his feud last year with Roman Reigns. There has to be a big part right here, and this storyline, it's paying off, and it doesn't disappoint. It didn't disappoint last year with Brock Lesnar, and it did not disappoint this year, and it's not going to. As a matter of fact, I think this is as elevated. This has gotten me more excited this year than it did last year with Roman Reigns being in that main event conversation. So if you got to take anything away from all of this, all right, from all of this, you guys, is that the way they left the Royal Rumble on Saturday is the WrestleMania is gonna be. The entire show was excellent, you guys. We talked about it. We'll still talk about it. Monday Night Raw tonight. We'll hopefully hear back from Ripley, Belair, Cody Rhodes. Who knows? Night after Royal Rumble was always spectacular. You guys, we'll talk about the NFL Conference Championship games later on this week. As we're unfortunate to hear that the Bengals lost. Oh, and you know what? We got next season. It's still a season to remember, you guys. 10 straight games. I thank you guys for tuning into the Throwman. My name is Justin. Right here. You guys download us on all audio streaming platforms and tune in tomorrow for another episode of the Throwing, available on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. Take care, you guys.